Josh, thank you for being on the podcast. We're right here at in Brookside, obviously Peoria here at the OG. Is this your was this your first location?
This location
Josh's
actually
Sno Cone.
man. I mean, you gotta remember we opened in 2005.
Okay.
So I mean, 2005,
yeah.
Brookside. I mean, I don't know if it was even close to being this, what it is. But the OG location, 71st and Garnett.
Got it.
And then this is location number like 7 or 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is probably. Well, I'm speaking maybe a little bit out of turn here. You tell me. This seems to be the most prominent. You might have maybe the busiest street here and the busiest, I don't know, shack out of all of them. But
yeah, so it's crazy. I mean, like this location is one of the top 3 or 4.
Okay.
But our busiest one is actually at 111th and Memorial.
Okay.
So it's you're a downtown, midtown guy, so like this is all you know,
snob.
right?
Yeah.
So I grew up south, but so south is just insane. It is bonkers all the time. But this one does really, really well too.
Dude, Josh, so it's interesting growing up in Tulsa. You said 05. That sounds right. You got in at a time of entrepreneurship that I don't know. I find it very interesting.
Yeah.
How old were you when in 05 whenever you first started Josh's Sno Cone?
I mean, I'm only 28 right now.
Okay.
So I was 19 when I started this. It was after my freshman year of college, and I was like, I had worked for a place before, and I was like, I know how to do this.
Yeah.
And I think I can do it.
Okay.
And so I went for it, and we opened at 71st and Garnett, and it was me in a shack, 10 hours a day. Like, I learned how to play the guitar that year. I learned how to play the harmonica. It was like I just sat in there all day. And I built literally like conversations like this. This is what built this business.
Jeez Louise.
Because I would be in there all the time and customers would come up and I'd be so bored. I'd be like, so tell me your life story. And it's almost like it was like the G-rated version of a bar, right?
Yeah,
Just talk and we'd have conversations and they'd finish their snow cone. I'd be like, have a great day. And it was just and so you build a base of that and then that's kind of what created the culture.
Dude, how many locations, you started in 05, you started when you were 19. Yeah. Freshman year of high school, of college. How many locations are you at right now?
So in Oklahoma, we have 11.
Okay.
And then we have 2 trucks that go around.
Okay.
And then we do about 100 to 150 events a month.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah, so right now, like tomorrow, we have 10 events. And then Saturday, I think we have 9.
How do you do 10 events in one day?
Yeah, so we have 2 trucks that are going around. So you go do a graduation party for an hour, then you go do the next graduation party for an hour, and then you do a birthday party, and then you do a wedding that night with the same truck. You're just going boom, 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 boom. And then, so we're just, it's...
And how many employees do you have?
In the peak season of June, we'll have 70 people on payroll or so. And so it's a bit, it's like, when you don't know anything about it, it's like, oh, it's a cute little business you got there. And it's like, and honestly, I love it. Like, but it is, there's a lot to it that I think...
Dude, 70 employees, that's a lot. That's way more than I even anticipated with all these different events. How many people during a high time is in one of these shacks at one time?
2 to 3 when it's really busy.
2 to 3.
Yeah, so when it's really slammed, if you have 2 like ballers in there who know what they're doing, like that's what you want to be at because you want to make more tips, like you want to keep it going, and it's more fun with that person and the customer. When you get 3 people and you're just going boom, 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 it's like there's a part of me, I tell my employees all the time, I'm like, opening day we had the first customer in line got there at 7 a.m. and they drove from Moore, Oklahoma.
Jeez.
So that was on April 6th whenever we opened this year. Yeah. And so I tell all these employees, I'm like, look guys, imagine that everyone who comes to that window drove an hour to get here for that experience. And so if you give them a crap product or you just be like, oh yeah, and you just go on your day, it's like you've robbed them of something that was supposed to be a great experience.
Right.
So I say all that because for us, it's like 3 might be the most efficient and might make us the most money. But if you got 2, you keep that experience, I think, a little better.
You keep on mentioning the customer experience, you're telling your employees, imagining this customer, this person coming in an hour away for this product. Obviously, it's something that's top of mind for you. How do you instill that in 70 employees? Like you say, you hire during the high times. How do you instill that? And obviously, not every employee is going to bring the level 100%. That you probably would like, but what kind of training, what kind of things are you doing as an entrepreneur to like push them in the direction of like customers first?
Yeah, so like I think it starts with getting the people that are gonna I guess be the right culture fit from the start. It's really hard we've literally not fired, but said this is not the right job for you because a kid doesn't smile. Like if you're not a smiler, it's not the right job for you. And it's crazy, but like I believe in smiling.
How do you gauge that though?
So
are you a smiler? Or
yeah,
you're not
yeah.
a
So here's
smiler?
how we start. So like, and this is kind of like more behind the scenes, in the weeds, secret sauce type of stuff. So if you want to hear it, great. If not, press fast forward or something.
Right.
But what we do is from the second they ever meet me and my team, it will be in an interview process. But the interview process is a 4-on-4. So we get so many applicants and we can only interview so many that we got to do them in batches of 3 or 4 at a time, or we would be there all day. And so we say, hey, this is going to be it's going to be a team interview. There's going to be 4 of you, 4 of us. And we sit down with them. And in your stereotypical interview, I bet there's 10 questions at every company. You got to ask these questions.
Sure.
We throw those out there. We don't even care. All we're doing through the process is we're asking personal questions that are fun and easy. And all I'm taking notes on how big they smiled, if they asked their friend, like, oh, the new person they're working, they don't never met for the first time. How did they interact with that person? So the entire 10-minute interview is like a litmus test of like, do they do all the things that a top...
Not even necessarily answering the question correctly.
Exactly.
Has nothing to do with the question.
Has nothing to do with it. It's just, so for instance, what we do is the first question we ask, like, hey, real icebreaker. Let's just start with, if you could have breakfast or coffee with any person, past or present, who would it be? Something real simple like that. And you'll see kids literally before they answer, they'll smile real big. And I'm like, that one's a winner. I don't care who they say. On that note, though, like we're kind of gauging. So one of the last questions we usually ask is, there's a great book. It's called Are You Smart Enough to Work at Google? I'm not. I can't get any of those questions right. But I stole some of those questions and I put them in the interview. And I say, hey, this is a team effort. You and you break off, and you break off, try to solve this riddle, this problem. And I don't care if they solve it. Very rarely do they. Every once in a while they do. But like, I look at, did the person just go in there and say, okay, this is what needs to happen, and they just take over? Or they say, I'm kind of thinking this. What do you think? If they say that, they're in. Like, so we kind of measure those
Collaborative.
things. Yeah, because
Okay.
because when you're in here, like I said, from like the training we do to get the ice the way it's supposed to be for an employee is like, they have to close their eyes and tell me if it's soft or not without touching it. They have to listen. So is it soft? Is it crunchy? How good is the ice? Now. And I'm like, okay, here. And so we are like really wanting this little product that is a $2 product to be as artisan that we can make it. Now, like, could we make it even more? Probably, if I only had 2 employees, but I got what I got. And so on that, we take very, very like attention to detail. So to get to your question about how do you do it, is you start with the interview, and then you move on to the onboarding. And then once they get onboarded, you kind of follow up and they're like, hey, like, are you enjoying the job? And I tell people all the time, the employees, like, they start at minimum wage, that's what they get paid. But most kids in here with tips and everything are averaging between $12 and $15 an hour. And I tell them, like, if you're not at least 11, we're gonna have to let you go. Because that means you're not enjoying the job. Because when you're enjoying the job, it's natural. Like, hey man, how's it going? And like and people want to tip you. It's
Sure.
$2, so put $1 in the tip jar.
Yeah.
And so everyone knows that, like, if you're not at least at 11, like, you may not be the best fit. Not that we don't like you, just
Sure.
if you have to force yourself to have fun and smile all day,
Sure.
that's exhausting, you know? So it's kind of that. So that's a long answer for a short question.
I dig it, man.
Yeah.
I dig it. You've scaled since 2005. How was the process of, I find this very interesting, of a one-stop shop, you behind the bar.
Yeah.
You said 10 hours a day, like just back there slaving in order to scale. What are some learnings with growing to your number 2 location or number 3 location or that sort of thing?
I mean, to be honest, it was probably not good. Like, I was not a good entrepreneur. I still probably am mediocre at best, but like, I think what the question in which I found answers to what you're getting at is more like from location 5 to 8, like getting there. That's where all of a sudden I was like, oh, I can't do this like this anymore.
Yeah.
And this like this anymore was Josh works all the time in every shack. He works with everyone. He's there all the time. And I'm fortunate, you know, I have a buddy who's an entrepreneur, and he randomly one day was like, dude, you know, you don't have to work that much. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, I have to. It has to be perfect. It has to be great. And he's like, no, you don't. And I was like, oh shoot. And once like I kind of realized that, you know, as for me, in this business, like, it's tough. And you know this as an entrepreneur as well. Like, if you want it to be done 100% right, there's probably the way you want it to be done, there's probably a good chance you got to get behind the bar and do it. Like,
sure.
And I can even have someone who's been with me forever, and I can still find a critique and being like, but if you did it, like, but you have to, as an entrepreneur, especially if you want to scale something, you have to get to a point of like, and I hate this because it sounds like a sellout, but like, that's good enough. And that's as far as product goes.
Sure.
But as soon as I realized that I'm not selling snow cones, that's when I was able to say, oh, I can open hundreds of these if I want to. And what I mean by that is that, like, it was probably in year 5 or 6 that I read a book called Start With Why. I don't know if you've read it.
Oh, yeah.
By Simon Sinek. Yeah.
Yep.
And it just hit me in like, oh, I'm not selling snow cones. I'm selling summer. Like, everybody wants to buy summer. Everyone loves summer. I'm like, so all I got to do is sell summer. And as soon as I hit that, I was like, okay, the product's got to be really good, but the experience has to be the best.
So selling summer, that's a great point. You decided at one point in time that you said was that in between that location 5 to 8 is when all these epiphanies.
It all kind of hit at the same time where it was
so
like,
you're selling summer. What does that mean to you as Josh's entrepreneurial, like, I don't know, dreamer? What does selling summer look like?
Yeah, so we tell people, like, when we onboard, we're like, hey, look, our why is that we want to create great summer memories for Tulsa. That's it. We just want to create great summer experiences for Tulsa. And kind of what you've done for your brewery is that, like, doing those events, it's like the beer can be good, but they're not going to remember the beer as much as they're going to remember the Boulder Dash, right? And so it's a similar, like, that's a kindred spirit I'm sure we have there. So when it comes to every experience that is had through this right here, it's like, as long as they walk away being like, man, I'm a little, like, happier. Like, in my head, like, what really made this kind of solidify within me is that, like, we used to have these, when we only had 3 or 4 locations, we would have an hour wait all night. Like, at 71st and Garnett, like, we would legitimately have people would be in line for an hour. And I'm like, we gotta get them through. And I couldn't figure out, why would you wait an hour? And then I started looking, I'm like, oh, they're with their friends and it's summer and you got nothing else to do. So this is actually part of the experience. And once I realized that, I was like, oh, the snow cone's second to what's actually happening. They're here because they want to do something. And so for that, I was like, okay, that means this has to be as good as that. That line that they're with their best buds, the moment they walk up, we got to be at that level with them. And so early days when I was working a lot, I mean, I have kids now who are, I mean, they're 30 something. They started with me and we'll still get coffee or something. And they're like, so cool. Those are some of the best memories of my life. Yeah. And I'm like, so we start to go back to the onboarding is we tell them, like, if you don't look back at your employment experience with me and think to yourself, that was one of the best jobs and best summer experience I've had, then we did something wrong or you did something wrong. Like, one of the two, there was a breakdown. And so when kids are unhappy, I'm like, hey, maybe it's not maybe if we can't enjoy this, like, I'll help you find something else. So it starts there and then it goes to the customer. And I feel like I'm answering questions way too long.
No, I love it. I think, so my mind's bouncing around, and as an entrepreneur, you're probably right. We have a lot of similarities with the way we think. I find it interesting, kind of more behind the scenes stuff of the landowners. So I would love to dive into, obviously you're sitting on a piece of property. Yeah. I would assume you have to pay some sort of a land lease to sit here. Yeah. How has it been not only sourcing new locations, dropping these, no offense, glorified sheds, and hopefully getting along with some of these landowners? Yeah. Has that been a big trial? Has it been welcoming to a lot of these owners of these lots or parks or wherever that you're dropping them?
So, this is maybe a story on, like, or grit and what it takes to do something. But, like, when I start with the first location, when we tried to get that set, I was buying a shack and I was like, I'm going to put it somewhere. And I talked to 20 parking lots. No. And, like, as an entrepreneur, like, the best entrepreneurs are the ones that had to go sell some stuff every once in a while and be like, get a lot of no's. You got to get rejection and you got to feel okay with it. Right. And no one likes rejection. But, like, that process was like, man, people, I don't know why you wouldn't say yes. Like, I'm going to bring customers out. But it was more they just didn't know. It wasn't, you got to remember, like, when I started Josh's in 2005, there was maybe 2 or 3 other snow cone stands in, like, a 20-mile radius. There just weren't a lot, right? And so people are like, I don't know what I'm getting into here. But once we got the yes from what used to be Albertsons back in the day. It was like, okay. And then we paid them rent. And then as I started looking for other locations for number 2 and number 3 and number 4, it was like, it was the same deal. Can I? No. Even now, like, it is nuts.
Even now,
people know Josh's. It happens 2 ways. There are people like, please come out to our parking lot, or please come onto our property, and you can pay a real minimal rent and do something, and we'll be good. Or I'm like, man, I really want that parking lot because we have to move a mile down the road because, you know, they're doing someone bought that property and our lease is up or something like that.
Got it.
And that actually happened at 91st Memorial. A group out of California came and bought that whole shopping center. I'm like, let's move across the street. And I kid you not, like, a local company that owns that real estate, like, they just aren't having it. They have no desire. It's like, we'll do anything. We're going to bring, even when their other tenants are like, we really want Josh's to be here. They're going to help our business. Like, we don't like it. And I'm like, so it's a mixed bag. And I think that's the whole thing where I'm like, I'm never offended, but I'm always like confused. I'm like, dude, it's a 4-month, I'll set it for 4 months. I'll move it. It will look like I was never there, or I can leave it and pay you rent. So I don't know the answer to like that other than like, we have to just ask a lot sometimes to get the location we want. And then like this location happened because someone else was doing something out of here, and the pastor of the church right here, they own the whole center. Yeah. And they're like, hey, we want someone, and we somehow connected through a mutual friend, and we have a great relationship now. We do a lot of collabs with them, so it's great.
Awesome, dude.
So we have everything from collaborative efforts to just pay the lease rate to corporate, leases that we have. It's all over.
Dude, I love that. I think of kind of in conjunction to that, like the land lease and putting these things. I'm always very curious on like what does something like this cost you? At the end of the day, obviously it's not a shed. I said that earlier. Yeah. There's a lot more to it than a shed. But like, it sound like you had bought your first one already kind of built out as kind of a similar type of setup?
Yeah, another like behind the scenes in the weed story, if you want it, is that like the first shack we bought for $5,000.
Okay.
And I think it was actually like a 15 or 20 year old shack, Okay. And I was like, man, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And when I started Josh's, the day we opened, I think I had $15 in my bank account. Like, that was it. I'd saved up all my money. I worked 3 jobs in my freshman year of college. Like, I just was a saver, and I was like, I want to do this. And surprisingly, the second shack we bought for 91st Memorial, for that location, I saw like in some random car wash parking lot. And I called the owner, and they're like, I go, hey, man, will you want to sell this? It hasn't been open for years. And he's like, yeah, what do you want to give me? And I was like, $3,000? And he was like, I don't think you've seen it. And I'm like, okay. So he opens the door, and it looks fine. And I'm like, yeah, it looks awful. How's 500 sound? And he's like, that's good. So, I mean, dude, it's the crazy. I mean, I was 22, 21, maybe 21 when I opened that next one. And so I didn't know anything. And then after that, we started building them. Okay. And building them the way we want, and that was kind of how it went from there.
It started.
Yeah.
Dude, that's so cool. There's always something that I don't know, surprises you in a good way. I feel like as an entrepreneur, you're at least for me, there's highs and lows. There's moments of praise, and there's moments of like tear down.
Yeah.
And you just have to go through it.
100%.
You mentioned grit earlier. You just have to grit it and just go through with it.
Yeah.
One thing is something before we started here, we kind of talked about all your different options here. Obviously, like we had mentioned, the Golden Eagle, Tiger's Blood was something that we had talked about. You have your own secret sauce, though. I don't want to go into quite secret, obviously, but you have your own thing.
Yeah.
Who's the wizard behind putting flavors together? Blue raspberry, vanilla, and lemon. Which one is that one, by the way?
Blue raspberry.
This is a quiz.
Oh, wait, Ocean Pacific?
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
Usually I'm better with the name. Okay. If you say the name of it.
Well, let's do this. That was so fun. Let's do this one more time.
Yeah.
Mint, cucumber, melon, and green apple.
Fresh cut grass?
That's right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Dude. So that one actually.
2 for 2.
Yeah,
Okay,
that one is from the guy who operates in Stillwater.
Okay.
So I had an employee, and he's like, I want to open one in Stillwater. I'm like, man, go for it. And he came up with that.
Fresh cut grass.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So back to your secret sauce
Yes.
one. You created your own. Are you the guy that gets in there with the ingredients and starts mixing up all the syrups and like what tastes good, what doesn't taste good?
Early days, I mean, I was, but like this is another one of those like behind the scenes. So everyone should be listening to this, Everyone on planet Earth, if you want to be behind the scenes,
Here
need
we
to
are
listen to
behind
this.
the scenes.
Yeah, is actually the flavor that we call Josh's Mix. It came from, I worked at a snow cone stand when I was like 15, 16. And a lady came up and she's like, I want this, and named a few flavors. I'm like, all right, cool. I mix it for her. I give it to her. She's like, oh my gosh, that's a bomb. And she just went nuts on it. Like, people are in line and she's going nuts. Like, you got to try. I'm like, cool.
Yeah,
$3, you know, and she left.
Yeah.
Well, then when she left, I tried it. I was like, oh, shoot, that's really good.
Yeah.
So I drew up a thing. I put it in the window. I said flavor of the week, because at that shack, like, it was like you do whatever you want. You know,
Okay.
it was some. It was
At
like,
the first job before
the
Josh's.
first job before
Okay,
Josh.
okay.
It was a tropical snow.
Okay.
And so I was like, I'll just put it up there. So we do that. And then when we started Josh's, I was like, we should make that. My wife was like, you should make that Josh's Mix. I'm like, cool. So we did it. And the goal for the first year was like, I'm going to keep it a secret. And at the end of the year, I'll reveal what it is. And my wife was like, no, you just keep it a secret forever. And I was like, that's a better idea. So I tell people all the time, like, as an entrepreneur, you're probably the same way, but like, we get probably hundreds of ideas a day, and one might be good a year, you know, for me personally.
I get it.
My wife gets one every 3 years, and it's incredible. So I always listen to my wife, man. That's where I go on it, you know. So
Speaking of your wife, obviously family has a lot to do with entrepreneurship.
yeah,
I'm married with 4 kids, and it's always a struggle for me to disconnect. It always is. I'm just probably similar to you. I get the vibes that it's just go.
Yeah.
It's just go. It's grind. It's grind. It's grind. And sometimes it's hard for me to disconnect. So the struggle of work life has always been something.
yeah,
I find it interesting, especially when there's a collab opportunity. Whenever wife steps in, your wife, for instance, and helping out with a flavor, and I don't know at this level, obviously where you're at today, if she's still a part of the org.
big part. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she booked all of our events up until last year.
Okay.
So she would work probably 20 hours a week.
Okay.
Booking events, and we just had that role taken over because she's so slammed with the kids. And so yeah, that was, we were in this together in early days. I mean, the other behind the story is basically like, the reason I started Josh's was to get married. Like, I'm gonna just say it, like, and that's kind of a real story. Like, I was 19, we had been dating.
Whoa. To get married, meaning you didn't have the money to get married, so you needed to make money.
Correct. So we had been dating for 4 years.
Okay.
And high school sweetheart deal, you know. And I tell my dad, I'm like, Dad, I want to get married to this girl. And he's like, how are you gonna afford that? How are you gonna provide? I'm like, well, I got this idea.
I'm not gonna give you the money.
Yeah, he's like, yeah. And so, you know, he was like, well, I mean, I go, I'm gonna do this thing. Okay, well, you know. So I started, and then halfway through the season, I'm like, we can live like poor college students for 4 years, get our degrees, and just be poor married couple, and it'll be great. And I pitched that to her dad, and he was like, as long as you can provide and get you guys through college, like, I'm good with it. And so we got married our sophomore year of college. We've been married now 18 years.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, so it was just, so that was one of the reasons I started this. It was a big reason for it. So I didn't mean to cut that off, but yeah,
No,
back to what you
dude,
said,
like,
unplugging is tough.
Yeah. So there's obviously a certain level of her having the understanding of maybe more of the day-to-day, having been a part of it or intricated.
Yeah.
As a big time, you said she was involved with events.
Yeah.
So booking those things out. I find it interesting whenever there are moments of that, or there's moments of a phone call, which happens to me all the time, of like, better get home because I'm about to kick these kids outside and lock all the doors.
Yeah.
So I find that obviously, because it's a daily struggle for me.
Yeah.
It's a daily struggle to raise my kids in a way that we find that they're not going to be complete a menace to society.
Yeah.
And I think it's also the juggle of how much are you giving to your company, how much are you giving to your employees.
Yeah. Well, and on that one, dude, I will say that, like, I have a very unique situation here in which, like, I do a couple other small things, you know, to provide for my family, but, like, this is the main thing we do, or at least until I'm starting a new venture, and we can talk about that later. It's a massive venture down south, but it doesn't matter. But right now, what it's always been is I could legitimately turn my phone off for 2 to 3 months out of the year. Like, it was like, I always feel like I had the opposite of a teacher. Like, come November, I could turn my phone off and I could turn it back on in January, and my life is fine. And so I think that has always been a luxury, and we were able to really, like, reconnect as a married couple and all that. But then her also understanding, but, like, I mean, every April, it's tough because
Yeah.
or in March and April because we're restarting, and it's always like it goes from Josh, who's mega dad, mega husband, doing everything, crushing life, to like, where's Josh, you know? And so it changes a little bit, but I've, over the years, you get a little better at it, but like, I think when no one understands that pressure of carrying a business and feeling like you really do feel like if I don't do it, it's gonna fail if I don't
Yeah.
do this thing, and I
Yeah.
don't know how to overcome that, but with this new venture I'm doing, I think
Let's dive in, man. You
Yeah.
keep on hinting at it. What are you up to?
So we have this concept called Courts and Commons that we're doing at 121st and Memorial.
Oh, cool.
And basically it's a micro food hall and 8 indoor pickleball courts on a lake, green space area. And so it's kind of like all my favorite things about Tulsa into one little bubble. And it started as like, I got this idea. It's akin to other concepts out there
Sure.
in the US, but like everything looks like a little bit like something else type of deal. I think Ecclesiastes, there's nothing new under the sun, you know, like we know this, but all that to say that like it was this idea, and then all of a sudden it got feet, and the framing's up, the walls are going up like today.
Wow.
I mean, it's going, and it's
Good for
29,000
you,
square foot
man.
facility.
Wow.
It's massive.
That's huge.
Oh, it's huge. And
Yeah.
so we're gonna, we'll talk beer, soon. Get you guys
For
over
sure,
there, but
for
like
sure.
we'll have coffee, a juice concept, and then 3 other food concepts.
So with this new concept, are you trying to focus on, obviously the pickleball is being kind of the big element.
Yeah.
You said food hall, micro food hall, so people can come in that aren't playing pickleball,
Exactly.
just come in and eat.
Yeah, so you go south, like you said, you're a midtown snob or a downtown snob.
100%.
And I get it, because it's like you go south and it's like franchise. I don't want to eat Arby's and I don't want to eat McDonald's, and so there's not a lot of local out south, and there's one pocket where there is some local, and that's it. And so for me, as someone who's just like a creator who wants to create great stuff for Tulsa, it's like South Tulsa needs great stuff too. So this opportunity came up, the land was there, and it was kind of a perfect storm to
Yeah.
be like, okay, let's go for
Yeah.
it. And so everything will be local, and then it's huge. I could get into it and speak hours about it, and maybe we do a follow-up on this once we open.
I love it.
But it's gonna be a really cool space. My dream in doing it is that I actually, to speak to who you are and your snobbery, I've actually said I want to create something so cool that people who live downtown is like,
Yeah.
we got to go check this out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we do that, then we'll be successful.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that's what we're doing. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I love it.
It's
I
super
love
cool.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, thank you so much for being
Absolutely,
on here.
man.
We're right by a very busy road. There's
Yes,
a lot
yes.
of people passing by, but this has truly been a joy.
Yeah, me too, man. I appreciate
Josh,
it.
it's been great to get to know you a little bit more. Obviously, you've been a part of these other big events that we've done with
Yeah.
Boulder Dash and other things. And I love getting with other fellow entrepreneurs that kind of understand the struggle at
Yeah.
times. Again, back to the highs and the lows.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think we're all just bettering Tulsa.
Yeah.
We love the place that we live, and we just want to make it better.
100%, dude.
So thank you so much for being on here,
thank you.
man.
Yeah.
Thank you for hanging out in one of your stands.
Heck yeah, man.
It's been great, dude.
Cool, man.
Appreciate it.
Great talking.
Yeah.